can consider an incinerator like three boxes. The first box is the furnace, which converts hundreds, in this case thousands, of tons of trash a day into trillions of nanoparticles and gases. The second box is the air pollution control equipment that attempts to capture all those nanoparticles and toxic gases. And this second box, the air pollution control equipment, in this incinerator costs more than the rest of the incinerator together. And that tells you something very important. It tells you that the economics of incineration is clearly inferior to the alternatives of recycling and composting, because neither recycling or composting converts solids into gases and tiny particles. And so economically it's always cheaper, always going to be cheaper to recycle, to compost and reuse. But once you've captured the nanoparticles and the toxic gases, or done the best job that you can, because not all the nanoparticles are captured, you need a third box for the ash. For every 3 to 4 tons of trash that you burn each day, you get 1 ton of ash. 90% is the bottom ash, 10% is the fly ash, and this ash has to go somewhere. So you need a third box for that. In Germany, for example, they put the fly ash into nylon bags, and the nylon bags down into salt mines. In Japan, they vitrify the ash, not all the incinerators, but some of them. And in Denmark, beautiful Denmark, they have a wonderful solution. They send all their ash to Norway. In Italy, no one has any idea where the ash is going. We believe that the ash from this incinerator in Brescia is going to the big landfill in Genoa. Now, the arguments against incineration: first of all, it's a huge, bad economic investment, a huge waste of public money. This incinerator cost 300 million euros to build, and it only produced 80 jobs. The same amount of money invested in the alternatives of reuse, repair, recycling and composting would produce thousands of jobs, including the jobs in the industries which use the secondary materials. Secondly, it's a waste of energy. Even though they bill themselves as energy from waste, a thermal valorization, they are in fact a waste of energy. 3 to 4 times more energy is saved by reusing, recycling and composting than you get from burning. Let's consider one material: PET plastics, the plastics of plastic water bottles. 26 times more energy is saved by recycling that PET plastic than burning it. And yet we have the stupid Italian government subsidizing the energy produced in these facilities. For a while, the public utilities had to pay 3 times more for the energy produced in these facilities than in the energy produced from fossil-fueled power stations. And as we speak, European money is going into building new incinerators and gasification plants in Italy, even though this is a waste of energy, and even though this money, for example in Foggia, I've just been in Foggia, they're getting 8% diversion, 8% recycling and composting, whereas other communities in Italy are getting over 50, over 60, over 70%. And yet this community that's only getting 80%, 8% is getting a huge amount of European money to build a CDR facility and an incinerator. It's absolutely scandalous the way that taxpayers' money is being wasted on these machines. Another issue, of course, is that it's a huge wasted opportunity to fight global warming. Now you have consultants in Europe that say, oh, these are very good for global warming because they're better than landfills. But this is a false comparison. If you compare the impact on global warming of recycling and composting compared to an incinerator like this producing electricity, it's 46 times better. 46 times better in terms of reducing global warming gases if you recycle and compost compared to incineration producing electricity. And so this is again another wasted opportunity. The other problems with incineration is it produces a toxic ash and of course toxic air emissions. Of particular concern are the nanoparticles. The nanoparticles are so tiny they're very difficult to capture even in the most modern incinerator, and these tiny particles present exquisite human health problems because they're so tiny. The nanoparticles are so tiny they get deep down into the lungs. There's no defense. They go straight through the lung membranes into the bloodstream, and they circulate throughout the body, and it can enter every tissue, including the brain. And the real problem for the incinerator industry today, or problem for the public, is that there are no regulations. There is no regulation for nanoparticles. They regulate these incinerators at 10 microns, which is 100 to 1,000 times larger size particle than those that are emitted from here. Now, all of this, I could go into all the problems of dioxin and all the problems of nanoparticles, but why should we? Because we're now in the 21st century, and the issue today is sustainability. These things are not sustainable. Even if you could make this thing safe, even if you found a way to capture all the nanoparticles, even if you found a safe place to put the ash, it still wouldn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to spend 300 million euros destroying resources that we should be sharing with the future, and spending all this public money to create 80 jobs. It simply does not make sense. And it doesn't make sense in the 21st century to trying to perfect the art of destroying materials. That's not our challenge in the 21st century. The challenge in the 21st century is to stop making packaging and products which have to be destroyed. And that is the central message of the zero waste strategy. It says we need community responsibility at the back end with source separation, porta a porta, composting, recycling, waste reduction initiatives, reuse, repair, and community centers, economic incentives, separation for the residual facilities to separate the residuals, and research aimed at better industrial design to move the issue from the back end of waste disposal to the front end of resource management and better industrial design. Waste is a design problem. Nature makes no waste. Human beings make waste, and we have to become as clever as nature and develop the zero waste strategy. It sounds like an idealistic goal. I know, it sounds too idealistic, but we can show that zero waste can be approached with a series of simple, practical, cost-effective, and politically acceptable steps. And the good news is that many communities in Italy have started this process. And you start with porta a porta, not Vespa, porta a porta collection systems. And we already have now in Italy over 2,000 communities with porta a porta getting over 50% diversion, 50% recycling and composting. We have some communities in Lazio province that managed to get over 60% in just 1 year. Novara, a community of 100,000, 70% in 18 months. Priula Consorcio in Treviso, 22 communities averaging 76%, 4 communities over 80%. Villa d'Asti in Piedmonte, 85%. And even in the south, in the province of Naples, we're getting communities over 70%. And in Salerno, over 80%. So it's clear that in Italy there are communities that are doing the right thing, and I'm standing in front of the wrong thing in Brescia. This is the wrong way to go if we want to do something for our planet. The number one challenge of the 21st century is sustainability, and the springboard to sustainability is zero waste. And the springboard to zero waste is porta a porta. Now, if you focus your camera down there, that symbolizes a lack of porta-a-porta. There is one container which is set up to take mixed waste, and that is a symbol. If you don't separate your waste, then this is what you get. This is the symbol for incineration. If you have lazy politicians, if you have a lazy population, or I think it's more the lazy politicians that don't set up the system so that you retain the luxury of mixing everything together, then that is what you are going to get. That is what you get if you're not prepared to source separate. But look at that, because that is the symbol of a lack of sustainability. This says we don't care about the future. You see that beautiful, beautiful building? Superb architects, they've made it look very pretty with the pastel shade of blue and a nice modern architecture, but basically that building spells out failure. A failure to take on the challenge of sustainability in the 21st century. This is Paul Connett. I hope you've enjoyed this little videotape, and if you want to see more about zero waste, go to our webpage. The webpage is AmericanHealthStudies.org. AmericanHealthStudies.org, and you'll see a series of videotapes I've made on the road to zero waste. Thanks a lot.